Hi, folks, and welcome to the Weirdly Random. I am your host, Steve Weir, and joining me today is my all-time favorite, my most likable, most awesome, and certainly the most humble co-host I've ever had on the show, me. Me, myself, and I today. I'm just kidding about all that stuff that I say about myself. But I am, hosting today by myself. I am my own co-host, and some of that will make sense maybe in just a little bit, but ignore all that stuff I said about myself. It's just sort of a running joke there. Today, I want to talk about the idea of being weird. And you'll have to excuse me, my voice sounds a little bit off today. There's been some sickness going through the house, and so my voice is a little strained and a little bit of congestion, but wanted to get this episode recorded today while I had some time and some availability here. But today's topic, we're going to talk about the idea of being weird. We titled this podcast The Weirdly Random because we really wanted to lean into the idea of being weird. Obviously, my last name is Weir, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But today's topic, I want to address the embodiment of what that means to be weird and really how to live that out. And focus today on someone who has staked their entire professional career, their life on being weird and truly living that out. Now, who am I talking about? There's probably a lot of folks that could come to mind as you think about names, celebrities perhaps, other folks that you might know that perhaps are mutual acquaintances or whatever. I'm not talking about Johnny Depp, who plays a variety of amazing characters. I'm not talking about him. I'm not talking about Pee Wee Herman, though very weird, particularly if you watch the 80s show Pee Wee's Playhouse and the Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Wow, talk about a weird trip that was. Large Marge. Maybe we'll address 80s movies here in a future episode. I'm not talking about Jack Black either, a phenomenal actor who plays an amazing set of characters and is going to be playing Bowser in an upcoming Super Mario movie. Super excited about that. I'm not even talking about Steve Buscemi. He's an interesting guy, always plays sort of a creepy kind of guy. But no, I'm not talking about any of those guys. I'm talking about the one and only Mr. Alfred Matthew Yankovic, more commonly known as Weird Al. Yeah, Weird Al. He is an amazing individual, super creative, a true artist in the music industry, and more recently, even again revisiting the film industry, and so we'll talk about that as well. But Weird Al got his career. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. If you're not familiar with maybe you know Weird Al, you've heard of Weird Al. Hopefully, you've heard of Weird Al, and not lived under a rock for the last 30 or 40 years. But Weird Al actually got his start through a comedy show that aired on what was then called the Dr. Demento show. And that was back in like 1976. Al was like 16 years old and decided that he was going to try this out. So he sent a tape in. But Weird Al has since then sold more than 12 million albums and probably way more than that now at this rate. He's recorded more than 150 parodies and original songs, has a wide variety of songs and genres and things that he's played and can perform, certainly. He's performed more than 1,000 live shows and been to one or two of those, which, again, I'll talk about that later. His work has earned him 5 Grammy Awards. That is impressive. And further, at least 11 nominations, if not more. He has 4 gold records, 6 platinum records in the United States, and really just an amazing creative artist. And so one of the things, that Al got started with, Al's known for his look, his hair, the mustache, the accordion, the Hawaiian crazy shirts. Typically, he's got these 80s or 90s slip-on shoes, or he's got the Converse going on there. But Al got his start. Al got his start when he was a kid. There was a door-to-door traveling salesman that was selling accordion lessons and guitar lessons. And so, as the story goes, his parents said that he should try the accordion because there was already a famous accordion player out there, Frank Yankovic, and they said there has to be at least one more great accordion player out there. And there's no relation between Al and Frank Yankovic, but still a fun little story there. That's how he got his start in music and started writing his own songs and things like that. Now, he got his start on, as I mentioned, the Dr. Demento show, and he recorded a song in what was then, it was a public bathroom. And because of the acoustics, this natural reverberation, kind of get this not quite studio feel, obviously, and that's where he recorded the song, My Bologna. Now, obviously a parody off of My Sharona. If you're familiar with that song, they're from the early 80s, late 70s, etc. And so, but Al is most known not just for his style, his iconic look, that hair, but he's known for his parodies. And he has a very unique style, which I so appreciate. There's almost no style that Weird Al can't play, actually. He can play, he can parody, he can rap, he does rock, he does pop, he does alternative, he does country. And eventually he puts them all together into these medleys that he puts together that are all surrounded in polka. And I think it's so fun. It's really fun. I love the fact that he does all of that and creates these songs, these parodies where he changes the words and takes these new, unique takes on these popular songs to create these new found, and I'll go far to say it's work of arts. So, but with his parodies, Al has mentioned that he always seeks to gain permission from the artist or some sort of approval before he will release his parody. Now, I'm sure, because he's an artist, I'm sure he's thinking about what song he's going to write or what the new words are going to be for this song. It's a popular song out there or whatever, and I'm sure he's already thinking about what those words are before he gets the permission, before he releases that song. And most artists are actually okay with that. There's been a few instances where that has not been the case. If you are familiar with popular music over the course of the last 30 or 40 years, U2 and Prince and Coldplay and all these other guys, they have never allowed Al to do a parody. Now, I don't know if Al's necessarily written some. I'm sure he has, but he's never released a parody because he never got permission from the original artist. And there's a story about when Al did the song Amish Paradise, which was a parody of Gangster's Paradise by Coolio. And the record label had given approval, but Coolio had not. But because the record label owned the rights and the permissions, they went ahead and did it. And so it was not viewed favorably by Coolio. But, what can he do? Al did it, and it's just really neat. And actually, there is this thing, and Al has addressed this. I've heard Al address this, that there is what they call... he addresses it in this most recent movie, which you'll see. Hopefully, you'll watch this. He calls it the Yankovic bump, or the industry calls this, that when Al does a parody of your song, there actually is a bump in sales. And he talks about this. He addresses this. I think it was REM or no, it was Nirvana. Actually, it was Nirvana. He says that after he released Smells Like Nirvana, their album, where their original song, Smells Like Teen Spirit, actually had a bump in sales because of Al's parody. And so I just find that fascinating. One, because I love Al's parodies. Now, I'm not a big fan of, just because I don't do this. It's not one of the things I do, but I don't listen to a lot of popular music. I don't listen to the radio very often. I'm more of a podcast kind of guy. I like to listen to other eclectic music, a lot of instrumental, ambient music, things like that, just to help me focus, help me study, helps with anxiety, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of those other songs, to be honest, I've never heard the original song. I've always just listened to the parody, which I think is just a lot of fun. And it has caused me to, maybe want occasionally to listen to the original song, although sometimes I assume that the original song is, while it's popular, I don't necessarily understand it. I don't understand, some of the lyrics and things and the story behind them, but Al's parodies I totally get. And it always makes me have a lot of fun and laugh and enjoy Al's parodies. But speaking of this Yankovic bump, it really becomes sort of this rite of passage, or this, you've arrived, I guess, as some artists probably view it, if Al has done a parody of your song. That's got to be, I think as an artist, I think that would be really exciting. I think it would be perhaps intimidating. Who's gonna have written my song? Who's gonna what are they gonna think of this parody? What's Al gonna have done with it? Is he gonna ruin the song? Is he going to make it totally wacky and miss the total meaning? And that's the whole point of a parody, right? The parody is not necessarily to make fun of the song, but it's to rewrite it in such a way that is, again, not in a disrespectful way, but to honor the artistry of the original artist, that this is a popular song, but Al taking a weird and wacky sort of take on it, which I think is a lot of fun. Some of my favorite parodies that Al has done over the years, certainly loved anything that he did on Michael Jackson. Loved the Eat It song, parody of Beat It, Fat, which was a parody of Michael Jackson's Bad. Another one, Rides the Bus, instead of Another One Bites the Dust. Certainly a very famous song. That's a lot of fun. A very interesting one, is the theme from Rocky 13. And it's called, that's the name of the song, Theme from Rocky 13. And he takes the song from the Rocky songs, The Eye of the Tiger, and he turns it into The Rye or the Kaiser. And it's all about Rocky kind of giving up his athletic career, his boxing career, and going into owning a deli. And I'm like, how does he come up with these ideas? Where does that come from? It's just somewhere there in his creative, wacky sort of brain. These ideas come out, and I love it. But another of my favorites is Yoda, parody of the song Soda. And then the White Stuff. I was never a New Kids on the Block fan, or NSYNC, or any of those boy bands. Never, ever listened to a whole song. I remember listening to part of it just so I could hear what the original sounded like for the parody. But Weird Al did a song called The White Stuff, and it was all about the white cream from Oreo cookies. And just can't get enough of that. And, it's sandwich cookies, and it's just so much fun. A lot of fun in that song as well. Now, generally speaking, as I think about Al's various parodies, a lot of them tend to focus around food. And which we all love food. We love to think about food. We idolize food sometimes. It's what we do when we are feeling anxious or when we're feeling stressed or whatever. But these songs, sometimes he addresses topics of food. Certainly, Eat It and Fat and all these others. He's done a few Star Wars ones, which I think is kind of fun. There, that Star Wars has reached this pop culture priority, this iconic foundational piece to pop culture. If Al has written a parody about you, and so Star Wars is certainly one of those. Then he's written other just general nerdiness. I think of his song White and Nerdy. It's sort of like my anthem, I guess, my anthem in life. Maybe not quite 100%, but I love that song. And again, different style, different flavor there. But that song, White and Nerdy, there's things in there that I'm like, I'd love to have learned Klingon and, from Star Trek. I'd love to have a Segway. And I don't wear a pocket protector, but I definitely can understand the logic of having a pocket protector, and so that song is just, it resonates deep within my soul as my weird and wackiness. And so a lot of his songs, I think, resonate with people in their quirkiness, in their weirdness. Now, my first experience with Weird Al, if I'm remembering this correctly, and again, my memory does not serve me as well as it probably should, and that could just be because I've got too much on my brain, perhaps. I don't know. But my first Weird Al CD, I believe, was the CD called Off the Deep End. And that's it's a parody artwork of the Nirvana CD. And so it's that cover artwork of the Nirvana album where it's this naked baby swimming in the pool, after a dollar or something on a fish hook or some weird thing like that. And so what Weird Al does, he it's a picture of him naked in an appropriate non-graphic kind of way, very strategically placed camera, and so you see him after a donut on a hook, which I think is just hilarious. But that was my first Weird Al CD, I think. And so a lot of the songs on that album, a lot of the songs on that disc, I know through and through. I could, just last night, I had some Weird Al, thinking about this episode today. I was listening to some Weird Al in the car. And as I'm listening to that, I'm instantly singing these songs because the words just come right back to me, which is so much fun. I think I had a cassette tape too, back in the day, of Weird Al in 3D. I think I had one of those too, which was kind of fun. And obviously I do not have any cassette tapes anymore, but that was one of my first cassette tapes, I think, was Weird Al in 3D. Now, so I think I was actually asking my mom about this last night too. Again, as I'm thinking about this episode, I went to see Weird Al in concert. Now, my mom tells me it was twice. I remember definitely going once. Maybe I went a second time. I know I've been to a few other concerts with my mom, which is sort of a fun little experience, little tidbit. How many folks have actually, if you've gone to a concert, rock concert, whatever, with your mother, props to you. You're cool. You're cool. It might be a little weird by some people's standards, but that's okay. That's okay. A lot of fun there. But anyway, I went to this concert, and it had to have been back in the 90s, and it was down on the boardwalk, and we went to go see it. It was in the convention center, I think, and just so fun, so fun. I remember it being, and I don't know why I have this memory, but it had to have been during the summertime. I remember being hot and sort of sweaty, and there were these wooden chairs in the room, I think. I don't remember if we had bleacher seats or what, but I in my mind, I can picture this room, sort of like a gymnasium, conference, convention hall or something. But what I remember about this concert, and you see this if you watched any of Weird Al's shows on YouTube or on TV or whatever. I actually have a DVD of Weird Al live in concert, and I'm sure I'm going to watch it after I finish recording today. But he just has so many costume changes, and these multi-layered costume changes, and how he does it, I just have no idea. He gets into the suit, the fat suit, that is for the Weird Al, Eat It, and Bad. The Fat song, the Bad's the original one, and so he does that, right? He gets into all these costumes. Well, that's an inflatable costume. How does he do that? How does he put the makeup on? How do they put the prosthetics on so fast? Because they do it like between songs. It just amazes me. It really does. And he packs so much into a show. It's so entertaining. He is a true artist in not just his music, but in how he performs and how he draws the audience in, which I think is a lot of fun. Now, I love the parodies over the real songs. I think, and that's what I love about the concerts. You get to see his visual interpretation of the original song, and he transforms that into his own visual representation or his own visual interpretation of those songs. So there's always some sort of nod back to the original artist, which is always kind of fun. My eclectic music taste, I like all sorts of genres, I suppose. I'll put on any sort of thing. I had a former boss, and he used to always say, "So what do we listen to today?" And one day it was like, yes, I was listening to Taylor Swift one day, or it was some other sort of instrumental sort of music, just sort of ambient sounds. There was some sort of Gregorian chant going on. I mean, just anything. Sometimes it's with lyrics, sometimes it's not. But I have to know the lyrics so that when I'm working, my brain can focus on the lyrics while I'm also creating or designing or whatever I have to do there at my desk. So it's just always kind of fun. I want to talk through a little bit about his studio albums and just what they have sort of meant to me. And perhaps if you've listened to some of Weird Al, be sure to let us know. I'd love to know what your favorite Weird Al album is, or song or parody that you've listened to. And you can let me know there in the comments. I'd love to see that. But his first official album was 1983. And it was just called Weird Al Yankovic. And I remember the cover of this being sort of a hand-drawn caricature style of Weird Al in this room with all sorts of stuff all around. And they were all, I remember there being, it was almost like, not quite like a Where's Waldo, but it was like one of those puzzles where you have to find the hidden object inside this very detailed photograph or detailed drawing. And that's what this cover artwork was all about. And it was really kind of fascinating. Next album, just a year later, he did Weird Al Yankovic in 3D, which was a great CD. Love that one, or I guess album, tape, whatever it was, there in 84. In 85, he released a song or an album called Dare to Be Stupid, and that was a fun one too. Turns out, and I remember this very distinctly because I was a big fan of this movie. That year, in 1985, 1986, the Transformers the movie came out. And this is the animated movie that had the Transformers and the Matrix of Leadership and Galvatron, and then there was, Orson Welles is in this. There's all these famous people that did voices for this movie. Now, I have friends who don't appreciate this movie. They think it's terrible. I remember one time I invited friends over. This is a true story. I invited friends over and I said, hey, why don't you come over to my house and we'll watch a movie together? And I was single at the time. We had this apartment, me and a couple of guys, and I invited some friends over and I said, we're all children of the 80s, so obviously you guys are going to love this movie. If you haven't seen it, you should. And so we put this movie on and they hated it. They did not appreciate it. And I thought, what is wrong with you guys? Are you even my friends? This is an amazing movie. And they just didn't appreciate it. But I learned later why they didn't like it. And I think it's because, generally speaking, society didn't like it because, and I'm getting off on a tangent here, but in that Transformers movie, Optimus Prime dies. The iconic, the hero of the Autobots, of the Transformers, Optimus Prime dies. And so anyway, that's why people didn't like the movie. But in that movie, getting back on track here, in that movie, there was a song that was Dare to Be Stupid and was played during this scene where there's these robots that live on this planet of junk. And they talk about how they learned how to speak English or speak human being language, whatever it is there in this world. They learned it all by watching TV, which is so fun because that is sort of a strange little thing. But they talk about operators are standing by. They say all these kinds of things that you would see on commercials and other thing. But I remember that song being in the movie, and then having the cassette tape and listening to the song later on after it came out. I remember thinking, this is amazing. Weird Al was in this movie, and so fun. Moving along here, 86, he released an album called Polka Party. And what's interesting about that is this album was called Polka Party, and like most of his albums, if not all of them, there is a polka medley that is included in his songs. And so this polka medley, or these polka medleys, take a collection of popular songs and he rewrites them, kind of replays them. The instrumentation is all in a polka arrangement, which is so fun, so much fun. A lot of exciting stuff there. It tickles me how he does this with the accordion and the polka beats and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, after that he did Even Worse, which again is a parody cover art of the Michael Jackson bad artwork. So Al's standing there. He's got the leather, black leather with the chains and all the 1,000 buckles on it and all that kind of stuff. A lot of fun. Now, in 1989, Al released an album that was the soundtrack to a movie that Al did, and the movie was called UHF. This movie cracks me up. It's not for everybody. It has some wacky humor, and I'll actually talk about this, I think, after the break about this movie. But that was a fun little soundtrack there. Off the Deep End, 1982. That's the CD that I had with Al, kind of swimming in the water there. A lot of great songs on there. 1993, Alapalooza was a fun album because that album was a parody then of the Jurassic Park cover artwork, because Jurassic Park was out around there, and it's like a Tyrannosaurus Al on the front, which was kind of fun. And he did a song on there about Jurassic Park. I think it was also a parody. 1996, he did Bad Hair Day. That was the album where the Amish Paradise came out on, and a few other great songs. Love that album. 1999, Running with Scissors came out. Fun little album there. There's a Star Wars song on there, The Saga Begins. Great song there. And again, I love when he does parodies like that. 2003, took a little bit of a break there. 2003, Poodle Hat came out. 2006, Straight Out of Linwood, where he does, again, some more parodies. On that album, that's where he did White and Nerdy and a few others. 2011, things got spaced out here a little bit. Al did Alpocalypse. And then 2014, his last album that he released that was a studio album was Mandatory Fun. Now, I know Al has done other things throughout there. He did the song for, I guess it's the Netflix series, The Adventures of Captain Underpants. He's done some guest appearances on some other albums. He did some stuff with Weezer. He did some stuff with a few other artists in recent years. But just so many good songs, so many great parodies. And again, so eclectic. I love that because I can listen to one particular style. I can listen to these medleys. I can have a little bit of fun, kind of sing along, and these wacky, weird song titles, song themes, which I'll talk a little bit here after the break. But so much fun. I think it is time for break, and so what I'll do is when I come back, we're going to talk about, I keep talking to myself like there's more than one here. It's just me in this room, here in the studio recording. But when we come back, I want to talk about some themes, common themes that I see throughout Weird Al's music. I want to talk about some of the movies, and I really want to address, and this is where things maybe get a little more philosophical, and that is the why. A little bit about the why of Weird Al and why I think he resonates so much with me and why his music means so much. So anyway, all that for later once we come back from the break. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Hi everyone, this is Steve, your host for the Weirdly Random, and this is what they used to call a station break, at least back in the days of radio. It gives the show host an opportunity to go grab a drink of water or stretch their legs or, use the facilities, which I hope I'm doing all of those three things right now during this break, the other me that's doing the show. Anyway, in radio, this would be an opportunity where show hosts would give some sponsored advertisements for some products that they like or things that they use every day. Really helpful things. And those companies or those products would probably pay me money to make said advertisements. But that's not what I'm doing today. I'm not even paying myself for this ad, come to think of it. Anyway, hopefully I've had enough time to grab that water, stretch my legs, and use the potty, because it's probably time to head back to the show. Anyway, see you then. Okay, and I am back from the break. So I've been talking about in this episode a lot about Weird Al Yankovic, and I've talked about his music and his albums, things like that. I want to talk now a little bit about some of the common themes that I see throughout his music. And they're not, it's kind of fun. I'm sure a counselor or a therapist could look at Weird Al's themes and think, this guy is just either totally off his rocker or is absolutely brilliant, and could dissect these a little bit. But I just love these themes, and they're wacky, they're weird. But some of the themes throughout, there's always a polka medley, and I've talked about that briefly before the break. I love the medleys because he takes these popular songs and throws them all together into one song and little snippets here and there. It's so much fun, a lot of fun to listen to. Again, I don't listen to popular music on the radio. I don't listen to the radio station, all that kind of stuff usually. And so I don't even know what all the current songs are. If you were to play a song for me, if you found me on the street and asked me who sang this song or that song, if it was the 80s and 90s, I might know it. Maybe in the 2000s, but I could not tell you anything popular today. I don't know song names. I don't know who the latest artists are. I don't know any of that. But you asked me a Weird Al question, I very well might know it. So common themes throughout his albums, there's always these songs that are these polka medleys, which are just so much fun. Another thing that I see on a lot of his albums, particularly towards the end, most recent albums, the last probably 5 or 6 or so, maybe a little more, is that there's one song that goes really long, and it's usually at least 9 minutes long, sometimes up to 12 minutes or whatever. And it feels like when I'm listening to this song, these long songs at the end of his album, it feels like a stream of consciousness. I'm sure he wrote the words down. I'm sure he planned it that way, but as he's going through these songs, it almost feels like a stream of consciousness. And that's just so fun because I totally get stream of consciousness. I mean, that's sort of how podcasting works, I guess. At least my brain does sometimes. That I start talking, I start thinking about one thing leads to another, one topic leads to another, my idea, my brain goes this way, goes that way. And so I just love that. But these songs are just so wacky and weird, and sometimes they circle back around to how he started, sometimes not. One example, he did this song called Albuquerque, and it's kind of catchy, has sort of like a catchy beat to it and other things, but it's all about, it starts off going to Albuquerque, and all sorts of weird and wacky things happen throughout the song, and then eventually he comes back to it, and it's like, and this happened because I went to Albuquerque, and it's hilarious. Probably not for everybody, but I find it funny. Of course, I also have probably a weird sense of humor anyway. I don't think most people really get my humor. Maybe they do. Maybe they're just agreeing with me with my sense of humor. I don't know. Anyway, there's another song that he does is called Trapped in the Drive-Thru. And again, this is a parody of another song. I don't even know what the name of the real song is. But this was a parody, Trapped in the Drive-Thru. And this song is 11 minutes, almost 11 minutes long. And again, the same kind of thing, just all sorts of wacky things that happen while you're stuck in the drive-thru. There's a car in front of you, there's a car behind you, you can't get out, you're stuck there. And this song is all about that. I mean, just so strange and weird and wacky. Some of the other themes that I see in Weird Al's songs throughout his albums is that there is a series of songs that are all about love. They're love songs. Now, sometimes it's like tainted love or a scorned love where the main character in the song gets dumped or whatever, and so it's all about what he would do to get the other person back, or this desperate guy, he would do anything for love and ends up making really poor choices and these self-destructive tendencies that this guy in the song does, it's stuff that's so off the wall that it doesn't even sound physically possible, but it's just fun. It's fun to listen to, and it's fun this is going to sound weird, but it's fun in a weird sort of way. But you also realize that if this were real, if this person were real, the person who is not Al singing this song, but the person whose song this is, the character, the persona, the subject of this song, if that person existed in real life, your heart almost breaks for them, right? You almost realize, wow, this person is so jaded, so scorned, so disappointed, so rejected and dejected in life that, wow, this guy really needs some love. This guy really needs a hug. So he talks about those kind of things. But then he also talks about other songs about where he is in love, and that love causes him to do things, where he would go out of his way to do things, because of his love for this other person or whatever. Some of them are parodies, some of them are originals, which is kind of fun. He did a song, Do I Creep You Out? And that was a parody of a song. He did another parody of a song that was James Blunt's You're Beautiful, and he did a parody called You're Pitiful. Again, sort of these self-deprecating songs, which makes me, sort of question maybe Al's self-esteem at one point, but he's been so successful. But, these songs, and they're funny, they're hilarious. Again, they're not possible. They're these impossible, ridiculous, imaginative scenarios that just make you laugh, and perhaps in a wacky, weird sense of humor kind of way, but so fun. And then he does these other songs where they are taking everyday items. My Bologna is one of them. Riding the bus is one of them. Oreo cookies, right? That's another one. He writes one all about being a flight attendant. I mean, Airline Amy, again, sort of a love song. But, he writes these songs about everyday items. And it's like, sometimes songs are all about, ideals in life, or about love, or relationships, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. And Al writes about some of these weird things that are just the everyday stuff. My sandwich. Well, I can't say I've ever written a song about my sandwich, but Al does. And so it's sort of entertaining, kind of fun and quirky. He also has a couple of songs that are all about sort of the end of the world sort of scenario. And in the midst of that, have sort of this, whatever kind of attitude, a little bit of a twisted sense of humor, but kind of fun to listen to, and certainly don't live out the things that you hear in Weird Al songs, but the sense of humor, the weird quirkiness is sort of interesting. Now, let me talk about the movies. I mentioned earlier in the first half the UHF movie from 1989. And really the premise of that is, this was back in the days where you had UHF and VHF, and that's how we got our television, right? You have these large antennas, and so you would get them from a TV station your local TV station that would be broadcasting out on ultra high band or VHF, and so they would be broadcasting out, and they would do a lot of the local programming there. So Weird Al did this story. He did this movie where the radio station is struggling, and Al comes in to save this radio station and ends up taking on this huge broadcasting mogul or whatever, and trying to win the station. And so it stars Al, and actually stars the guy who played Kramer in Seinfeld, Michael Richards. Now, this was before his issue with racism and things like that in the news, Michael Richards. But he plays a quirky custodian, and Al is the manager of the studio. But the movie is full of this wacky humor, these sight gags, sort of like a, what do they call it? Physical comedy, where you trip, you fall, you step on the broom, bonk, it hits you in the face. I mean, that kind of stuff. He does parody commercials and parody game shows. There's this one episode, there's this one scene, I guess I should say, in the movie UHF. And I think about this often, probably more than I should, but it's a parody on the Wheel of Fortune. It's called the Wheel of Fish. And so this guy, he's the host, and he's, oh, Mrs. Weaver. And so, she's there, and there's two other contestants, and so she spins the wheel. And so it looks like the Wheel of Fortune, except rather than having prices on it or whatever, it's fish. And so the dial, the wheel lands on the red snapper. Oh, red snapper, very tasty, And so this cracks me up. So this happens, and so then the game show is well, you have a choice. She has the choice. Oh, Eva, what are you going to choose? And so it's this guy, and so her choice is to take the red snapper, this huge fish, or what's in the box. And so he goes, oh, will you take red snapper or what's in the box? And so she chooses the box, with this idea that it could be something fantastic. It could be $1 million. I'm sure in this character's mind, in this wacky story, the parody game show, she's thinking, I'm going to get something in this box. Well, instead, the box is empty. And so this thing comes to my mind, this phrase, nothing, absolutely nothing. And so I think about that whenever something happens, and there's like, well, what did we find? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Just a weird, quirky kind of moment there. That these quotable lines from this movie come to mind at random times, and I am for sure certain that none of my friends get them. None. Maybe one or two friends who might get some of my UHF references. One or two, maybe. But the rest of my friends, and I don't have that many friends, they don't get it. And I'm like, man, you guys are missing out. If you had just watched UHF, you would understand. Oh, Weeva. Nothing. Anyway, all right. I'm getting off track here. I'm cracking myself up. I'm in a moment here with UHF. Okay, so Weird Al, he did this movie in 1989, and then later, and just most recently, I'm sure he's been involved in other things. I'm sure he's had cameos and other things, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of all that, but most popular and what really brought Weird Al back to the surface, I guess, or more to the limelight, were two key things. One, recently, within the last 3 or 4 years, Weird Al did a polka medley, a rewrite of Hamilton, the Broadway production, which is phenomenal. I love musicals, and so I love watching the music, and I like that sort of thing, these shows. And so anyway, Weird Al did a polka version of Hamilton, and it was so fun. He takes all these little key moments throughout the movie and summarizes it down in probably about 4 minutes. And it is hilarious. And so Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote it and is known for that, and a few others, I saw this thing, it was on YouTube, I saw it, but Jimmy Fallon and Weird Al sends, I guess, Jimmy and Lin-Manuel the version, the polka, Hamilton polka, and then they film their reactions, and it is hilarious. It cracks me up. It's so fun to watch. But anyway, so Weird Al did that. That brought him back sort of into the limelight for a new, younger audience, I think. Now, not rewind, but fast forward to today. And just within the last week of this recording, Weird Al released a new movie called Weird, the Al Yankovic story, or the Weird Al story. And what's so funny about this, now there's been a lot of talk about this movie, and one, he's offering it for free on the Roku channel, which I think is fantastic. He has released other things for free through his website, etc. But what's so funny about this movie is that it's a parody celebrity biopic, this sort of biographical sort of lens of this person's life on a person who does parodies. It's almost like a parody of a guy who does parodies. And so, if you watch this movie and if you're expecting it to be 100% accurate and truthful to Weird Al's actual life, you will be disappointed. I mean, it sounds like, this crazy life where he's a secret agent and all these kinds of things that happen that are ridiculous. none of that is true, or 99% of that is not true. Now, there are nuggets in the movie that are true from Weird Al's life. However, what's so funny about this movie is that it has these little bits of truth, and about how it features the song My Bologna and I Love Rocky Road and Another One Rides the Bus, and these iconic songs that were from Al's early days. And there's a little bit of truth there on how those songs came to be, and Dr. Demento's in there, and it's kind of fun to watch and to have a little laugh there. But Daniel Radcliffe plays Weird Al in this movie. Mr. Harry Potter himself, among other characters that he has played. And what's so funny is, you see him play Weird Al, and it just cracks me up. I think it's hilarious. It's a fun movie, fun to watch, highly recommend. It is mostly family friendly. We talk about here on the Weirdly Random that we're going to cover family friendly content because I'm producing this with my kids. Not today, my kids are in school, but the show is mostly family friendly. There's not really a lot of language in that, which actually speaks to who Al is. Al has said recently, and I've known this, but Al doesn't curse. Even in his personal life, Al doesn't curse. He just doesn't see the need for it. Thinks we should have a broader vocabulary than that. So it's just part of his upbringing, which really makes me curious there. But anyway, so the movie is pretty clean. There's a couple of instances there with Madonna, which you would expect. It's Madonna, I guess. But really funny. Highly recommend if you're into wacky humor, ridiculous parody, spoof material, which I am, and so it's a lot of fun. It's fun to watch. Available, and this is not I'm not getting paid for this plug for the movie, but it is fun, and it's available on the Roku channel. You don't even need to sign up. I watched with a guest account, just clicked play and got to watch it, and maybe see an occasional ad, but it was a fun thing to watch. All right, so I want to talk now a little bit about Weird Al and as a person, and to his role, his significance, I'll say, in I guess pop culture, or maybe more so in life, and why I feel like Al is so important, and why I guess I resonate with Weird Al. I'm guessing early in Al's life, he was an only child. I believe his parents were pretty older when they had him, and I'm guessing Al always knew from probably the beginning that Al was different. He was a different kind of kid. And we have those. We all, if you have kids like I do, that your kids are unique. And sometimes your kids are more unique than others. And so they stand out sometimes in a good way. And they have to embrace that. And other people need to embrace that. But I'm sure that Al realized early in his life that he was unique, that he was different. And I'm sure that now he's probably come to the point where he truly is owning that weirdness. I mean, he what I'm sure started as an insult of Weird Al, he just took it, owned it, trademarked it. Now you owe me $20 every time you say it. I'm sure, he took this name and made a not a persona, because he was already Weird Al. He already had carved out this identity of who he was. But now he just took the name, this moniker, because, hey, why not? I'll show you. If you're going to use this name to make fun of me, well, I'll show you. I am weird, and I'm going to own it. And I think that's really kind of fun. Again, Weird Al is known for his fashion sense, or his hair, and that iconic accordion that is just so fun to see. And so I love his sense of humor. I love his quirkiness, and his creativity, and his use or reinterpreted use. I don't want to say misuse of lyrics, because I love how he is creative to come up with some new themes and some new songs. But I think Weird Al is someone to look up to. I think that there's a lot of kids out there, perhaps a lot of kids from the 80s and 90s, and even some kids today, who who could look up to Weird. I certainly felt like I did in a little bit. Growing up, I was a little different. I never felt like I really fit in with the cool kids or the athletic kids or the jocks or even the band kids. I mean, I had friends who were, each of those areas, those groups. My school growing up was small enough that everybody knew everybody. So I might have been friends. I sat in class with friends who were the jocks. I sat in class with friends who were the cool kids, the smart kids, the band kids. But, I never really felt like I was one of them. I didn't play sports. I wasn't in the band. I certainly wasn't the smartest kid in class. I didn't feel like I was part of that group. And I certainly wasn't the coolest, that's for sure. Still am not the coolest. But I always had sort of my own, I don't want to say my own style, because I did try to fit in, I guess, with some of them. I would be invited to birthday parties on occasion, and I would go and have fun. But it wasn't like they were my best buds. A few of my best friends, still talk to today a little bit on a limited basis. But, that was then. And life has changed. We're all sort of changed and kind of learn who we are a little bit. But as you go through life, with the last name of Weird, I mean, Weir. When you go through life with a last name like that, middle school and high school can be a little rough anyway. Regardless, you're probably never going to be the coolest kid on the block with a last name like Weird. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Now I sort of have owned that. I mean, heck, the name of the podcast is The Weirdly Random. If that's not owning it, I don't know what is. But, even just not even making fun of myself. I'm on the phone, with customer service or something, and they ask you for your name. Sir, could you spell your last name? Sure. W-E-I-R. It's weird, but without the D. I do that all the time. And some people laugh. Some people don't get it because maybe they're not spelling weird right. There's still this whole I before E except after C, except in weird and weir. But anyway, so I still sort of own into that. I don't mind it at all. And I love to be that weird person a little bit. My office is decorated far different than anybody else's. I've got Doctor Who things. I've got little trinkets and things from the trips I've taken. I've got my homage to Back to the Future and to 1980s and to Legos and all these other kinds of things in my office that most people probably don't get or understand or care about, but I do. And that is where I feel like I've sort of leaned into that. Now, I'm okay with being different. I'm okay with having interests that are different from others. I'm still not the smartest. I still try to be cool. I'm far from athletic. Exercise is like a bad word. I don't even like to use the word. I love music, but I can't play a note, even on a kazoo, if I tried. I'd love to learn an instrument. I just feel like I'm not really wired that way. But what Weird Al taught me, I think through his music and just through who he was that being weird and being unique and being myself, that's okay. That's okay. I don't have to look like everybody else. I don't have to look like this guy over here who's the smartest guy, and I don't have to look like this guy over here who's, the football player and the quarterback, or I don't have to look like that guy over there. I can be myself. I think it's more important. This is where we kind of take this subject of Weird Al and go kind of get deep here. But for me, I think what Weird Al taught me is that it's more important to be known for being myself. Weird as I may be, quirky as I may be, it is more important to be known for being myself than for being known for being something I'm not. Let me say that again. I feel like it's more important to be known for just who I am, quirkiness and all, faults and all, rough edges, ragged edges, quirky sense of humor, mistakes galore. I would rather be known for being Steve Weird than being known as something that I'm not, for being a fake, for being somebody who tries to put on a good game, for somebody who is, we use this word hypocrite. I don't want to be that. I want to be known for being my weirdness because I don't want to try to hide that weirdness. Not everybody's going to get it, sure, but that's who I am. And I think Weird Al helped me to learn that. Eventually, I learned this now as I'm in my 40s, and I've accepted the fact that I am a master of the mediocre. I'm still not the smartest. I'm still not the best handyman. I hate doing handiwork. I can hammer a nail and use a screw gun and hang photos on the wall, but don't ask me to do much more than that. I'll never be the smartest, and I'll never be the best at everything. I'll never be an expert in anything. Because that whole phrase of jack of all trades and master of none, I've learned over the years that is kind of who I am. And I'm okay with that. I love being weird. I love that idea that I can adapt and I can learn a thing here or there, but I don't have to be the best. I don't have to be an expert. I don't have to be the coolest, the smartest, the most athletic. I don't have to be the most popular for sure. But if I'm known for being me, if I'm known for being who I am, how God made me, then that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'll be weird. I'll be Steve Weird. It'll be me, and I'll be me, and I'll be the best me by staying true to my weirdness and my quirkiness, owning and accepting that. I'm okay with that. Weird Al helped me to see that you shouldn't turn away from your weirdness, but own it, live it. It's going to look different for everybody. We all have our weirdness. You have a weird quirkiness about you. Maybe something that you don't want other people to see. Maybe something that you're not comfortable with other people seeing. But Weird Al helped me to see that, at least in some sort of sense. And life experience, helped as well. Whew, well, I just went a little psychological there on myself. This feels like a little personal therapy monologue here. I think I needed that, maybe. I think I should charge myself $85 an hour now. Feels good. Get that out and maybe say that out loud a little bit. But before I bill myself for any longer here for this therapy session, I think maybe we should wrap this episode up. Weird Al, great guy. Listen to his music. Listen to his parodies. If there's a famous song you've heard, what's your favorite parody? Be sure to leave that in the comments here. Love to hear about that. If you've seen the new Weird Al movie, go see it. Love to hear your thoughts on that as well. If you like today's episode, you can hit that. You can like this video here on YouTube if you're listening there. If you're not listening to us on YouTube and listening on our podcast, particularly on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review. That's really helpful in other people finding the podcast, helps with the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. And you can subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can subscribe through Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, all those kinds of things. Other ways. You can also find us on Spotify. Listen to the podcast there as well, and you'll be notified if you, in Spotify, if you hit that little heart button or whatever, add it to your shows, you'll be notified when a new episode comes out. You can follow us on Instagram. We're at The Weirdly Random. Tag us on your weird photos. Weird Al did this recently. Every year, I've noticed he does this, where he collects all the pictures. He scours the internet for pictures of people who have dressed up like him for Halloween. And then he puts these together in a neat little collage, which is kind of fun. Be sure to tag us or send us a message, or you can reach out to us on Instagram at The Weirdly Random, or you can even use the hashtag The Weirdly Random. You can email us at weirdlyrandomshow@gmail.com, and we'll pick up your info there as well. You can let us know about your impressions of Weird Al, what your favorite piece is there. I think that's it for today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out today on The Weirdly Random. My name is Steve, and I was your co-host and host today. But as we close out, just one thing kind of coming back, as we like to say at the end of each of our episodes. Remember to stay weird, be random, but never never fail to be kind. Okay, au revoir.